Hello, everyone. My name is Renee, and welcome to the N.E.S.T. Today, our conversation focuses on the journey. We're focusing on the journey because I realize that it can be challenging. It can be a hard process for many people to acknowledge, to find support, or to find help. Where do you go? Who do you ask? What are the lessons? What are the blessings that you learn? What are the outcomes? How do you maintain all this information that you learn? Well, as a wellness coach, it is my honor and privilege to be able to walk alongside some very, very brave individuals who decided to make some significant changes in their lives. And today, I am honored to have with us one of those. It is because I understand the difficulty that it takes to even share a personal journey or the intimacies of a personal journey. So today, I would like to introduce you to Connie Campbell. She's a wife and a mother of four. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. And I'm so grateful. Thank you again, because I know that it's not always easy to share intimacies, but because you've taken that opportunity or agreed to share this, someone's life is going to be different just because they've heard the words that you've expressed. So thank you so, so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's just talk about, the word journey. If I were to say, what does journey mean to you? How would you describe that?
The journey. So not like the walk, how we're walking through this life. So my journey is how I walk through this life and the choices that I make, and not knowing when I need help, not knowing, like the knowing and the not knowing. And so like you came into my life, how, if I want to say like, you're part of my journey, you're part of this life, and how you came to me wasn't something that was like calculated. I wasn't searching for you. Mm-hmm. The journey was, I'm like flowing through this river of life and you showed up into my life, just like all of the other things. So however you want to answer that, the journey of it, I look at it like just our daily life and how we walk through it and how we choose to walk through it. Not where it's taking us, but how we're choosing to go through it. So.
Cool. So for me, the journey sometimes is when things change along that walk, mm-hmm. right? And it throws me to the left or to the right, or it makes I'm uncomfortable about whatever's happening. What was the catalyst that prompted you to begin your journey with me or with Mirror You Wellness?
Well, so ultimately, I would say the catalyst was my oldest of the four boys going to college. And that's when I ultimately reached out to you. But we had met a year prior almost. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who you were. I saw your pretty little face, because you know my husband, but I didn't know you and you didn't know me. And so I saw you, I think that was in October of maybe 2018. Mm-hmm. And then in August, September of 2019, there was a lot I was preparing. So on my journey, there was a lot of things that were changing for me with getting prepared for my oldest to leave the home. And I remember what the empty nest syndrome looked like for my mom, and it wasn't pretty. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of afraid that was going to happen to me as well. Or I wanted to make sure that wasn't going to happen to me. But there were a lot of things that were going on in my life that were these little things that I hadn't seen before, but I'm like, I don't know what those things are. I don't know what you call them. I don't know what this feeling is. Now I know we call it intuition and trusting that. And and something told me I had followed you on Facebook. And so as soon as Tom took our oldest off to college, I'm like, I don't know why I'm calling you. I don't know why I'm writing you. I think you have something that I need and I don't know what that is. So I actually I trusted myself and acted upon it, which was huge because, not all of us want to ask for help. We think we're good. I'm good.
Yes.
I'm trying to be the strong mom and watch my kid go away to college. And I just knew that I needed something. And I think a lot of us get caught up in like, I don't need therapy. Those are for people who really need it. I'm fine. I'm good. And the reality for me was I knew I needed something more. I didn't know what you had. I didn't know what you offered, but I knew I needed you. And so I trusted that. And I knew my husband trusted you. So I was like, Mirror You Wellness, what do you got for me? Because Ruby Red, I think I'm supposed to be talking to you. And here we are.
Yeah, and that was a surprising email or text because it's like, what? Because I had made some major changes in my life as well. And again, we did meet and we didn't talk for the longest time. And to feel that or to see that, it was like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? But now I understand the power of synchronicities, the power of things coming together in a divine time. I kind of mentioned what the thought process was and how we kind of got together. What was it like when we finally did have our first conversation face to face? Not the first session, but when you first began to get a little bit more clarity about what Mirror You Wellness was about.
Well, before I do that, can I just say the power of your word and the power of all of our words, how much power there is in it. Oops. Okay, so here I go. Okay. This must be important because tears are coming up. So that's when these show up. But in that time frame of us not knowing each other, but you knowing my husband, you saw me and you said something to my husband, not even knowing me. And you could have kept that to yourself, but you said something that was complimentary. I don't even know what you said, but he came home and relayed that to me. And I'm like, what? That she said, what? And to have this stranger compliment me helped. That was part of the catalyst of like, okay, she sees something in me that I don't know if I see right now. And you had the guts, you had the audacity, like, right? Like you had the audacity to go tell my husband something about me. And we oftentimes withhold compliments with each other.
Yes.
And it's really easy to throw out the things that we don't like about people, but you chose to do that. And because of that choice that you made to be kind, to share light, here we are. And so at first, I just want to say thank you for that, because that you opened a door and provided an opportunity that you had no idea we would be sitting here right now.
No idea. And I had to go back and even in my mind, what did I say? But I remembered it being about your light. I do remember that word. And we didn't even lock eyes on our first meeting that much to have a 5-minute conversation, but when it's time for things to come together, Spirit always knows. And in retrospect, it's amazing to look at how it came together or how the journey comes together. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for saying that.
Well, that was huge, because I know for sure we wouldn't be here if you hadn't Because if Tom hadn't come home and said anything to me, I think I would still be looking around going, is there anybody that can help me? I know I need help, but I don't know what kind of help I need. I just kind of want somebody, but you saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And you told somebody, you told my husband, who told me. I mean, and he could have withheld that information as well. And I've thanked him before, like, thank you for telling me what she said, because I really, that prompted me to reach out to you, because it provided a trust that I didn't know. I didn't know what I was trusting in, but I trusted you. And I didn't even know what. I couldn't tell you why. So that first meeting, that first session, when you came over, I'm like, do whatever. I don't care. Just do the thing. Like, I know we met and talked for a long time, but you're like, hey, I think you let's just start with Reiki. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. Sure, come on over to my house. And I'm like, I just trusted you, but I had no idea. Like, I'd never heard of it before. I'd never had it done. And holy moly, that was complete trust, and knowing that I didn't know what to expect, and it was amazing.
And can you, I tell people, I try to explain what Reiki is, or universal life force, or God's energy coming through the body, or what that means. And I usually am challenged with finding words to describe that. And I tell people that it's very important to me that you experience it first, because then as people try to explain it, then it starts to make a little bit more sense. That's how I see it. My explanation of Reiki to you, did it make any sense to you prior to getting on the table?
Well, energetically, I understood energetically what that meant. I understood chakras. Mm-hmm. So, if I was grateful that I understood chakras, but I didn't really know too much about them. I'm like, okay, there's energy centers in our body. I firmly believe, with family history and everything, where certain ailments would show up in my family members. I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense. Right. And then being introduced, knowing that like 20 something years ago, when my mom had a double mastectomy and breast cancer, Carolyn Mace was huge for her. There was a book that opened up, and it was all about the chakras. And she had given me all of her information, all of those books. And then you were able, so I had this information in front of me, but I kind of didn't know what to do with it. And your explanation was like, oh, that's what that is.
Oh, okay.
I know I'm looking at something, but my relationship with you were able to shine a light on it and say it in a different way that made me understand why it was important.
Cool. So there was some knowledge of it prior to, but not a complete comprehensive understanding.
And not a like a manage. No, that's not the word. How to like, it's this thing out here that was sitting there like, okay, chakras, but now you showed me how to use it like on a physical level of like, here's what you do with that information. So I know there's a word for that, but
practical application.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, that was it. Like, you were able to show me how to work with that. And so, the laying on the table the first time and just closing my eyes and completely trusting you, there were things that we ignore in our bodies, and I would ignore in my body, not knowing, like, that's just the norm. That's how I normally feel, not even knowing when your energy, when you were over certain spots and you were like having a physical reaction to my energy, validated and opened my eyes to things like, oh yeah, we need to really like look into this and dive into this in a way that I didn't know how I could. Like, yeah, my stomach hurts. I must have eaten something wrong. Like,
well, that's what we think.
Right. And so you bringing about the energetic quality to it and showing me how to control it myself, how I can be in control of my energy, really helped. And those Reiki sessions were huge, because you were validating what I was feeling And I was validating you, I think, with like, yeah, this is what happened. These are things from my past.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what's going on right now. And just being able to give a word to it,
Yeah.
or words to it.
And do you think if you were if you weren't ready or inhibited in any way, that you would have any of those experiences during any of your Reiki sessions?
If I was inhibited or
Well, if you were not ready to go or to hear or receive any of what you've received, do you think you would have?
I don't, I don't think so. Me personally, because if I'm skeptical, I'm closed off.
Right.
And if I'm closed off, I don't know if you're able to, if you even are able to pick up the energy that I'm not allowing you to see or I'm shutting off.
Right, because it's voluntary. So if you don't want it, if you're closed off to it, it's not a forceful thing because it's all voluntary.
Correct.
However, while in that session, oftentimes we may be able to identify things that may be subconscious, like the tightening of the body or the crossing of the legs or anything that indicates being closed off, because we may not be always conscious that we're like, because I've had people that they're inhibited because it's a very, it can be what's the word I want to use? Vulnerable is exactly to be on the table and to be in a position of not knowing what to expect.
Right.
So trust for me is very, very important. But there can be times on the table when, like you said, I might have a feeling of something and I might say something to you, and it kind of remedies, or the person on the table, and it remedies that situation because they just weren't aware of it. But that doesn't mean that they're closed off to the process.
Right.
So you had your first, let's say, Reiki session. Mm-hmm. After that very first session, can you remember some of the things that happened to you, your thought processes, if you had any prior disturbances or discomforts? Did anything happen for you?
Yes, especially because we did back to back to back. Like I remember us doing 3 sessions in a row, and that was really helpful for me because it wasn't like you threw something out at me and then I had to like kind of figure it out on my own. You were like, I would use the analogy of like we locked arms and we were going to figure this out together. Right. And so it wasn't like you left me to my own devices, because clearly what I was doing wasn't working. But afterwards, so the 3 sessions in a row really brought up like, okay, and not in a scary way. Like it didn't bring up stuff that I didn't know what to do with, but it was like, oh, so I didn't think that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. But that was the first thing that came out of my mouth. So like logically, if you and I were sitting at a table and you asked me questions, this wouldn't have come out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. But laying on the table and you asking a question and the trust being there, and the first thing that came out of my mouth, that ended up being a thing that I wouldn't even I wouldn't even consciously say it was a thing. So energetically, that here it comes out, and we were able to look at it, process it, and then you helped me put it where it needed to go. So it was no longer energetically attached to me and bringing me down and creating a problem that no longer needed to be there. That's what I recall. Not knowing anything. I didn't know any of these words. I didn't know Reiki, energetic, all of that. Looking back, that's what you did for me.
Which I think is marvelous, because if you look back, and I did mention earlier that I'm a wellness coach, but as your coach, looking back, I can see the humongous growth. But as you look back and you see some of the things, I think we talked about one time, you look back at your goals, and there was something you said about your goals, like, tell me if you remember that conversation.
Yeah, so the one we had recently?
Yeah.
Yeah. So looking back, you had me write down. So I ended up not only doing Reiki sessions with you, but I wanted the coaching from you as well.
Yes.
Okay. So when we started the coaching, I'm like, I don't know what I need you to coach me for, but I need something. And the exercises that you had me look at my life and put it on paper. So to take it from like, oh, my whole entire life, looking at this timeline and looking at goals that I have, um, not even knowing if I had any goals. Like you had me answer questions that I didn't even know I was supposed to be answering about myself that would be helpful.
Right.
And so looking back at those things a year later, like, seriously, that was a goal?
But it was huge at the time.
Yeah.
It was even hard to come up with goals, which it's with everyone because you're honing in on something specific. But that was the hardest thing to come up with. And now when you look back, you see, what was I thinking? I'm such a big girl now.
And I'm raising kids. I'm supposed to be taking care of my family. And like, what do you mean goals? I don't have time. I don't have time for that. You're asking me what I want? Like, you're asking me what I want. So now to actually sit alone in my own space, in my, like, I have to actually think about and that was hard. That was really hard. And it sounds selfish. And it was so just like the oxygen mask on an airplane. Like, seriously. In the empty, like, I cannot give what I don't have. And so you helped me see I needed to get myself right so I could give from myself properly. And so answering those goals questions was very difficult at the beginning because I didn't think there was a space for me to do that in my life.
Right. It makes, because I think to most people it sounds like, oh Lord, there's something else I've got to do.
And it's selfish, and it feels selfish.
Not because only, I've got all of these people, and you want me to focus on me. I see. Yeah. It was
to me, it was double-sided. Like, I don't have time because I'm busy. And this is kind of a selfish thing to do right now because I'm supposed to be taking care of them, not me.
And then we put on our oxygen mask.
I mean, I giggle about it now because I'm like, oh, no wonder I was exhausted and depleted all the time. Oh, I was trying to give what I didn't have.
Yeah, I said, here's something for you. You're gonna have it. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll be fine. But isn't that? I think. Do you know too many women or too many people who are caregivers who don't do that? Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that's the importance of having this conversation to say, take the time to start to recognize that until you are filled up yourself, that you may not be any good to anyone else. Or to ask somebody for help. How do I find that help? And as we've discussed or you shared today, sometimes just by a kind word or synchronistic move, things come together at one point and they mature at another point. And you did become a student or a coaching client for 6 months. Mm-hmm. What other services were you able to utilize that may have been helpful in your toolbox?
So I know I did the aroma touch session, which I loved that because, you know, I have the oils and the diffusers, but I don't know, like, yeah, this one smells good. You have a knowledge base on the oils. And then not only that, but how to utilize it to bring out what's necessary to bring out during a session. So I didn't know what to expect. I've never had an aroma touch session with anyone ever before. And the way you used that and how it smelled and how it made me feel afterwards was like, I think I've done a couple mm-hmm. with you now, and always walk away with that feeling energized at the same time as relaxed. if that makes sense. So
Yes.
like my body feels nice and yeah, it feels nice.
Cool. So that was one service. So we did the coaching, we did the Reiki, intuitive messages. How did the intuitive messages serve you?
So I I didn't know what tarot cards were. I didn't know any of these things. But I had a friend, a high school friend um, who is a psychic medium, and we didn't know that about each other until like right before I reached out to you. So, you know,
Wow.
right. And so but I was talking to her about like, okay, my son and I, we're like seeing things and we're feeling things, and I don't know what that is or what you call it. Like, I know I'm not crazy. Like you saw it too, right? Or and like what do you call these things? And not knowing any of those words or terms, she pointed me in the direction of John Holland, another famous psychic medium, and I would just driving in the car, I would listen to him speak with this book. And one of the things was, get all these tarot cards and work with them. And so I did that, but I didn't know what to do with them. Like, okay, I have them, but now what? And so you doing these messages, I didn't know what to expect. You're like, okay, I drew these cards. I'm like, oh, aren't those pretty? But then you started saying things. It was like, hold on. Okay, I was just thinking about that yesterday, or like the connections were insane because I couldn't draw them quickly enough or it looked like a hot mess of, okay, that's connected to that and that. And then you said that, and then that showed up over there. So for me, it was really fun. And you not only showed me how to utilize those intuitive messages, I remember it was almost like a Jedi mind trick when you one day I was like still reluctant. I'm like, okay, I have them, but I'm not doing my own readings, but you're doing them. And we were sitting across from each other and you're showing me how to do it, of how you do it. And then in that, I actually did a reading for you, but I didn't know I was doing a reading for you until we were done. You're like, you just did a reading for me. It was like a Jedi mind trick, a Ruby Red style. Totally.
I remember that.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, so yeah. And so that, like, honestly, that lack of faith and trust in myself, and that we all have that of like, oh, she knows better. Who am I? I don't know. I'm not trained in any of this stuff. To when you're giving me tools, whether it's oils or chakras or stones. Stones was another one we haven't even talked about. Yeah. Or just anything intuitive, and having those tools in my toolbox to say, like, what do I need right now? How can I help myself right now? And this morning I drew on my favorite tarot card deck. I drew 3 cards, and I just giggle every time, just like we giggle because it's like, oh, that's so sweet. My intuition knows me so well.
Yeah.
Surprise. And it's nothing like crazy magical. There's nothing like woo woo. And those are the things, I get caught up of, like, what are other people going to think? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I kind of don't want to like disturb the norm right now. Well, I threw that out the window, and you helped me get there by the coaching, by just showing me, by you sharing with me what you knew, what you know, and then me sharing with you what I know. And if we all do that with each other, like we're all just sharing what we know with each other, like, wouldn't the world be fantastic?
That's the way it should be. I believe that with all our, because you're right. I learned a whole lot walking alongside of you because I learned, I wanted to know. I was just as open. I didn't realize that what I was sharing with you, it would also be something that I could learn, or what you were sharing with me would be something. I didn't understand that this relationship would be as cohesive and that we would co-create, right? And that is what I think most people have a fear of, not being able to trust. thinking that I need help, but what are other people going to think? If it doesn't fit in the box of what I believe it should look like, I think those are the things that prevent people from getting help. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. The vulnerability is huge. And
Yeah.
I would like to say that our relationship is this really nice game of, like, I would say tennis. Like, we have this really nice game going back and forth of like, and we throw the ball at each other, and I help you, you help me. There's this like symbiotic relationship. Whereas I think a lot of the fear that I know that I had of is like, if I'm going to be vulnerable with somebody who really doesn't even care about me, or if I go to a therapist, do they do they really know me though? If and there's so much that I really think of it as like this nice game of catch that we have going back and forth, because to have that give and take is important in any relationship. And so me having you as a coach is truly a relationship, which is, I think, is what we all crave, that connection with someone. And you have personally provided that for me, as well as Mira, you has provided that for me. And knowing what that looks like. Because so often I'll go like, I'm paying you money, give me what I need. And I don't feel good. So I'm going to go over there and pay them money and give. And this is a learning together, sharing, and truly enjoying each other's company, and you being invested in my well-being. That was, to me, that was huge. And so
the vulnerable part, I think, is if it's not the top, it's close to the top. Who knew that certain things would come up? And if I don't want, first of all, it's already hard enough for me to bring it up as the person who it's coming out of, but then to be in the company of someone who I don't feel comfortable with, it's almost like, I'm grateful that you found solace. I'm grateful that you found a trust worthy relationship, because in these relationships, when God decides, with all of this love and light and all of the modalities of healing that we are utilizing, or that I utilize, your soul knew what you needed. I didn't know what you needed. I am not the instrument that heals. I am just a conduit. But your soul resonated with that life force energy. And through you being obedient and following the steps and using the tools that we developed or that were germane to you, you look like a whole different person. A year and a half later. Bravo.
And my family would tell you the same thing. And because you provide a safe space, and that's truly what it is. If you have a safe space and you're not sitting there pointing out all of my imperfections and telling me what's wrong, you're showing me all things good, all potential. And when somebody provides that for you, you believe it. And because it's the truth. You're only mirroring who I am and what I am. And so we can be so blinded by what we think we're supposed to be, and what society has told me I am. And you're showing me and showing us who we are at soul level, who we really are. And that safe space has transformed me. It allowed me to go on my journey. And like I said, my family would tell you that I'm much more calm, peaceful, in tune with who I am and what do I want to put out into the world, and being responsible for that. And you gave me a lot of tools and showed me how to do that.
Well, thank you very much. And it's just that, like you said, that symbiotic relationship. Your initial goals were one thing, But what I noted during this or during our time was that it turned or morphed into what?
So when you brought about this awareness in myself, then I knew I could start making choices that were more aligned to who I was, who I am. And that opened up doors for me in other relationships that got me to where I am now, like me pursuing how I can help other people. And it doesn't look like how your journey, like, so here we are walking side by side, arms locked, but what you do and what I do are completely different, but we're helping. The ultimate goal is to help people be who they are.
Absolutely.
And be the best of who they are and bring out the best of who they are to the world. And so those goals that I had were more, at the beginning, were more, they weren't trivial because there's still things that I wanted to get done, but that they weren't goals. And so now the goal being to help others by being my best of who I am is the ultimate goal. Now, what that looks like, I'm not sure, but I know who I'm a teacher, I'm a leader, and you were able to point those things out to me and share with me how you saw me. And to have somebody mirror that back at you, like, hey, I think I'm this, I think I want to do this, but I don't know if that's actually who I am. You gave that gift to me by being the mirror.
Wow.
And not being afraid to share it, and as well as to compliment. You know, a lot of we withhold the compliments because God forbid you hear something positive from my mouth. Society, that's what we, like I said before, that's what we do. We really know how to ping it. I can tell you all the things I don't like about you, but I'm not going to tell you all the things I do or how you make me feel, because I don't want it to come across as creepy. Like if I tell you, like, you're gorgeous, when we don't go and tell people that, like, oh my gosh, can I just tell you how fly you look right now? Like,
it's like, okay.
Right, she's creepy. And so so to be able to, like, that's what I'm thinking, so make that come out of my mouth. That goes back to how just you being not afraid to say what you wanted to say to my husband. To me, all of that bravery, that your willingness to put yourself out there like that, and there was no agenda. You weren't like trying to get me as a client. There was no agenda there. That's just really how you were. And you meet me where I am. There's no agenda. Like, but you have your stuff together, and you have a plan, but there's not like, hey, this is what we're going to do today. You meet me where I am, and we walk through this journey together. And I just love that. Love that.
Well, I'm grateful, because that's what a coaching relationship is all about. It's all about, you are the vehicle, you decide which way that you're going, and I'm your support system. I usually have a different voice than you would have as the coach, because I'm looking from a different perspective. But my job is to ensure that you have tools and everything you need, that when we're not together, that you're able to manifest whatever it is, the greatness in your life. And I have to say that you've done that, and you continue to do that, because for me, it is not just one event. It's that journey that you spoke of. It's that daily living your best life. And whenever something else comes up that needs to be addressed, you now have the tools and you have the tools that you need. And that doesn't say that you will never need support. What for you is the value of having Mirror You Wellness as a support system when you're going through something like this?
So right before Christmas, it was okay. Here we go. Because I thought I was good. You know, we were getting ready for Christmas. My son was coming back from college and we're all going to be together. And there was something in you that you, I believe, acted upon, was like, hey, how about you do Reiki? Let's do a Reiki session next week. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. And I'm like, I'm available Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. And you're like, let's do all 3 days. And I remember feeling not reluctant, but like, no, I told you I'm good. I can tell you, I
What
came
I need.
those 3 days. I came those 3 days, and I giggle now because you knew I needed it. I didn't know I needed it. I thought I was fine, and I would have been fine. But you really helped me make the holidays that much better, because having a Reiki, having an aroma touch, and having those coaching and intuitive sessions with you 3 days in a row, bump, 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 got me back into alignment, which, you know, I'm going to a chiropractor to get my spine in alignment. And I'm doing all these other things, but you were able, those what do you follow-up sessions, that maintenance program truly helped bring me back to, oh yeah, my oxygen mask wasn't on. And I thought it was transformative, and then propelled me into like, oh, okay, so now starting 2021 and knowing that, okay, I'm going to have another maintenance program again, with a session with you again soon, because that helps. It's like tuning up your car. You know, like you said, don't wait for it to break.
Right.
Don't wait for the car to break before you start getting maintenance. You do maintenance when you're good, and it keeps you like a well-oiled machine.
Absolutely.
And so I'm constantly giving the best. So to me, that maintenance program and having a constant, whatever that relationship looks like with you afterwards, even after the 6 months of like intense coaching, is really beneficial has been beneficial for me. And
well, that sounds good, because, and I appreciate the analogy of maintaining inanimate objects, our cars. You know, we put gas in them, we put, oil in them, and we take them in for service every once in a while, not because they're broken down, but because we're trying to prevent them from breaking down or extend their life, the life of that particular car. And I think that's where people sometimes get thrown off, because in my mind, because if there's nothing going wrong immediately that I can see, then I must be okay. But it's just like when I deal with people who have anxiety issues, and instead of preparing all day to be calm, it's almost like they're waiting. And when something happens, you have to do so much in that moment to get back on track. It is almost impossible to do it. So for me, the Mirror You Wellness membership does just what you said. It just helps to keep us on track. And when we've forgotten, or when we think that we're okay, it just simply reminds us to put on, as you use the analogy, our own masks first, to get our own oxygen, so that as we serve others, that we're not depleting ourselves. I'm grateful that those, and again, this is the relationship. I didn't know to call you. I don't know to tell you to do Reiki. I didn't know what was needed. All I know is when I am intuitive, when I'm receiving information and Spirit says, call Connie, or tell this person or that person, being obedient to that brings about the next step for you. Like, I have no idea what that means. And that's something that I believe that coaching and this wellness journey does. It helps individuals to trust their own higher selves, to trust their intuition, and to hear their voices. And if you can't get to someone who is your support, you have those things, those tools that you can use. What are the pros and cons, I'll say, for working with Mirror You Wellness?
Pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the cons are I don't see you enough. So that's the con.
Check mark.
Right. If I could do it like daily or weekly, that would be fantastic. That's a con. The pros would be, oh, there's so many. The pros with working with you, you know, like my huge goal is I want to live, my husband and I want to live to be 100. Okay, so if that's a goal, how do we get there now? Because we can't wish it to happen. So we're looking at all of the aspects of what we eat. So like completely changed our diet before I even, right around the time I met you, I was vegan, like one day, just all of a sudden, vegan for me. And that works for me because it's just fantastic. And then, so we're watching what we eat, then getting checkups from the doctor, because part of the catalyst to get to you was, okay, I don't want the breast cancer. Like, so every 6 months I'm going in, I don't have the BRCA, but I have a whole history of family with breast cancer. What can I do now that so being preventative, maintaining the car, how can I maintain this? So I'm a solution to myself and not dependent on doctors to give me medicine. I wanted to stay away from medicine. I wanted to do it in the most holistic approach. And so going to the chiropractor helps me with the spine. All right. So if I'm watching the food that I'm eating, and I'm going to the doctors to make sure that they're looking, okay, so physically nothing's happening. So what do we do energetically? And if the pro is having an issue, and I tell you, this is where I have an issue, and you're able to help me work it out energetically, and then give me the tools to come home and do it energetically as well. So now all of them are working together. That is a huge pro for me, because you've given me the tools to do it myself, as well as to go to do have you do the things that I can't do myself. That's a pro.
Yeah, well,
there's no cons.
Or that you have given me the opportunity, and I'm honored to walk alongside you with this journey. And I'm hopeful that every person that has the chance to hear this story will find themselves in this story and find themselves asking the same question and saying, you know what, I was thinking about that. Well, maybe there is hope. Maybe not, maybe there is someone who cares enough to spend time. And there are modalities outside of what I normally would use that may be able to be helpful, because I think when I use the word Reiki or, stones or, oracle cards or these unfamiliar terms, they also help people to be kind of inhibited. So I didn't ask you that. Was any of that? You said you didn't really know what all of that was, but you knew something about the energy.
No, I was never like, what's that? I know there's things like, okay. So I grew up with rocks, stones,
Okay.
but I didn't know necessarily like understand the vibration, that everything has a vibration, even humans, all things have vibration, all things have energy. I didn't know what the stones meant. And so nothing really I was interested. So I was like, give me any information that you can and I will eat it up, because I find this all super fascinating.
You were a sponge.
Well, and I think I was eating too quickly, because I was just like, what else? What else? What else? And then, oh yeah, that was the thing. Like, even like with numbers and numerology and like, and numbers meaning things. Cause I'm like, all right, so the number 7 means something to me, but I never had anybody to talk to about that. And your fascination with numerology led me to look at that a little bit more. And so now I'm able to offer that to other people and just to see it and then giggle when they show up. When I wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and it's 4:44, I'm like, oh, that's so sweet.
Yes, it's like I woke up like exactly 3:33 this morning. My eyes just popped up and I did. And a lot of people would not know what that means, or having conversation with like-minded people can be a challenge. Have you found times where you felt lonely
during this journey?
While you're on this particular part of your journey?
With you?
Period. Just on the process of being on a journey.
I used to feel more lonely, and alone. And what's really funny, timing wise, funny, that kind of funny, not like haha, is that here we started our relationship right before COVID. So here we are going to go into this space of isolation, and having that training and those conversations with you, I don't feel lonely, because I'm always like talking to myself a lot more, listening to the little conversations I have with myself of like, what do you think? So
right.
And
he's talking to me?
Yeah. And I'm just finding the beauty in everything, in nature, in the plants, just looking at everything almost like with these new eyes and these new legs, and wondering how do I walk forth in this new space, because I'm not who I was before. I don't see things, I don't behave, I don't think the way I thought before. And it wasn't because you taught me how not to, it was because of the back and forth of figuring out who I am, and you showing me the goodness in me that helped me be who I am today. And so I don't feel lonely. I also thrive being alone, and I know that about myself, and with a full household of people, and watching them. And truly, you asked me before about the catalyst, was being able to answer questions for the boys, when they were asking questions about like faith and spirituality and all of those things. I'm like, I'm not sure how to answer this, because I know how I was raised and I know what I think, and I think the answer is something else now, because that's what came out of my mouth, but I don't know where that came from. So not knowing the clairsentient part of knowing, like, I don't know how I know that. Why do I know that information? So one, nothing threw me off of what you did, and the loneliness, I don't have that anymore.
That's great. I'm happy. I can say that along the journey of transformation, whether it's I'm transforming during a N.E.S.T time, whether I'm transforming because I'm with a relationship, or whether I'm transforming because I'm starting a new career, that transformation can sometimes cause us to have to go into our own selves, which means we may have to pull away from the familiar, from people.
Right.
And sometimes for me personally, that because I'm such a people person, I'd love to talk. I was pulled away from the familiar. And it was maybe not lonely, but again, it was like, I didn't sign up for this.
Right. Yes.
So, which can be a deterrent. And that's, I guess, not using the correct terminology, but this journey I have found will cause you to have to seclude.
Yes. I was going to say shed. Yeah. Shed all those things that aren't serving me. So when that happens, it can feel lonely, or you feel lonely at the top. Yes, I would say that. So true. So feeling different, but at the same time feeling part of the whole It's
Mhm.
that, like, it's such an interesting pull of, I know we're all part of the whole, we're all the same. All of us are all the same, but
Mhm.
how come I feel a little isolated and like, okay, hi, I know this, but how come nobody else knows this and nobody else wants to talk about it? There's only a few
Mhm.
people I can talk about this, my journey with, because if I throw it out there to everybody else, they might like, what are you talking about? That's not
Yeah, it's
funny.
like, she's special. Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah.
Sure. I want to share with everybody when I find something awesome, I want to share it with everybody. I don't
Mhm.
want to hold that to myself. Not everybody's ready to listen though. So
Absolutely.
so then to be like, hey, if I do share this right now, a lot of people will probably unfriend me. Like, but knowing that we'll shed off the people that aren't supposed to go on along this journey with us will fall off to the wayside, and they'll go on continue on their journey, and it just won't be with us anymore. And so
Mhm.
that can feel lonely at times of like,
Yeah.
because it's not the familiar, moving into the unfamiliar is scary.
Mhm.
So there's the trust is
Mhm.
lonely, but knowing that you're not alone.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yes, there have been times where I'm like, I really want to share this with somebody, but I can't,
Mhm.
or I don't know who to share it with.
Well, nor is it sometimes the time to, because I'm like you, when I learn something, I'm ready to tell someone about it. But sometimes it's just for me to absorb and sit in it and kind of see how it applies. But then later on, someone or the opportunity will come with the right person and at the right time. I think is there. I think learning how when to hold them and when to fold them
Yes.
is huge, um, because everybody is not ready for everything that you may be growing into. But I have had an amazing time, and I am extremely grateful to you for sharing the intimacies, or just maybe small parts, but just in this amount of time. You have shared your journey with me, and you've given other people an opportunity to know what it's like to work with a coach, receive coaching, to go on a journey, some of the lessons and some of the blessings and some of the maintenance and how important that is. So, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and the audience. Would you like to have any last words or words of encouragement?
Mm, just thank you. Thank you for you being obedient and following your path, because that allowed me to get to where I am and where I needed to be, so I can go out and be my best self. This journey has been wonderful because you took the chance becoming Mira You, Ruby Red. And and um yeah, I just want to thank you for that. For days I could just sing your praises and shout out to the world. And knowing that not everybody that would come to you, it would go on a journey like we're going on, but still would
Mhm.
definitely benefit from the services that you provide. Just like going and getting a massage, you're
Mhm.
getting your muscles worked. We go to different places to receive different things to help our bodies and to help us and
Mhm.
to relax. So somebody coming to you might not want to walk this journey, but can still benefit from all of the services that you provide, which I think are fantastic. And we talk, like, even talking about the stones, and where, like, I still have this, your wand that you created for me and gave me as a gift. And at the time I'm like, I don't know what's thanks. I'm like, Harry Potter, I don't know, what do I do with this? Thank you. It's gorgeous. Like, I loved the beauty of it, but I didn't know, like, hey, what do I do with this thing? I'm not a wandy person. And it literally sits, just knowing that you created it and knowing that it has a certain energy and vibration to it, that if I'm aware and intentional with my thoughts. When every time I see it, it brings me back to that intention. If I want to use it, it brings me back to the intention. So you bringing that awareness and that knowing of being intentional with everything that I do, whether it's an oil, whether it's writing down a goal, whether it's listening to intuition, whether it's Reiki, energy healing, talking about chakras and balancing them. Like, I have an awareness now that I didn't have before that will help me reach my goal to be 100. Like, I want to live my healthy, best life, and you're a huge part of that.
Well, have you picked out your rocking chair?
It's purple. I'll tell you that.
Smile. Oh, Pearl, that's going to be off the chain. That's going to be.
There's something purple about that corner of like my huge goal is to sit back and look at the whole picture of the entire journey in the rocking chair as this old lady, this giggling, because it's just like, wasn't that a fun ride?
I had so much fun.
Why is that corner purple though? That's the funny thing to me. So
thank you so much. Again, thank you for your time, and I continue to keep you in my prayers, and I am eternally grateful for you, or to you, for trusting me to walk alongside you on your journey. And it's not over. The journey is never over. But as long as you're on your journey, I just plan on being there.
yes.
Thank you, girl.
Thank you so much.